Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Porch. It's Wednesday afternoon, 6:30. It's a good, pretty night. We've had a nice little rain. It rained earlier, and I thought about just doing it out in the rain because I mean, what else is there anything more peaceful than sitting on the porch during the rain? I don't think there is. But anyway, we're dry now, and thinking about Jesus, the Prince of Peace. And I hope that I hope things are going well for you today, this week. I hope that everything has been, hope that everything's been good. I really do. I've got to be honest, and I don't even know really where I'm going today with this, because for about 3 or 4 weeks, I've had really something kind of on my heart to talk about, and it scares me because I don't want to really talk about it, honestly. And it's just because it's so relevant, I think, today, and it's not really an issue. I just have had so many things on my mind with all that's been going on in our culture for the last little while, with racial tensions and reading on social media, Christians' comments. Sometimes it's kind of scary to me a little bit when I think about those things, because there have been a lot of. There's my neighbor. Hey, Brandon. Tell everybody hi. Yeah, I'm on my Devo. Brandon said hi. Because we all have been affected with a lot of these attitudes and a lot of the actions of different people in our culture, and so it's easy to be influenced by those people, sometimes, and we have to be careful as Christians. We have to be careful. I remember the "What Would Jesus Do" bracelets and T-shirts back in the '90s, growing up, and that's a great question to ask. Sometimes I think, what would Jesus do? It scares me a little bit, because I think sometimes, instead of asking what would Jesus do, maybe we sometimes presume to know exactly what Jesus would do, and that scares me, because anytime that anybody, it seems like in the Bible, presumed to know what God would do, God didn't meet their expectation. He did something else, and so I was thinking about Jesus, and I was thinking about some of these things. I read a great challenging article on the Christian Chronicles website from 2013 about social justice and the kingdom work, and are they the same thing, and should Christians be involved? I mean, this is a big question. I'm not answering this question today. Go look it up. Go Google Christian Chronicle. You can Google kingdom work or social justice, or whatever you want to. It was a great article written and about some of these things. How far and what should we do when it comes to our faith, and when it comes to social justice issues? How should we respond? How should we react? And so I just thought I'd pull out a couple stories today that really kind of jump out to me. There may be more. You may have some ideas too, and I'm not going to take a whole lot of time. I could on this. This could be a whole mini, 3 or 4 week sermon series on this, and try not to do that to you today. You won't stick around very long. But I was thinking about Jesus, and I was thinking about how did he handle things like racial issues. I think, the Jews despised the Samaritans, and the Samaritans really despised the Jews, from everything that we can read in the Bible. I was reading about this a little bit, and I was thinking about, one example, obvious example, I guess, is in John chapter 4, where Jesus would make a great example of someone maybe that most of the Jews would look down on. Number one, a woman, and number two, she was a Samaritan, and how he approached her, and how we went and he showed her love, and how she went and back home and told people about him, and later on Philip would come and carry the gospel to Samaria, and many would respond. And I thought, that's perfect. That's tearing down racial walls, racial barriers, and stepping across with love, and really reaching the hearts of people. One person showing what we can do as people. I thought that was a great example. I also thought back in Luke chapter 11, and I just want to throw some things out here for you to think about. Like I said, you can respond maybe in a comment, or share, some of the things that maybe come to your mind. But, and also in Luke chapter 9, I thought about this when Jesus was on his way back to Jerusalem. He was with his disciples in Luke chapter 9 and about verse 51. And it says, when the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And in doing that, he wanted to pass through Samaria. And his disciples went ahead to kind of find a place to make preparations for him to stay. But the text says that that the Samaritans didn't receive him because his face was set for Jerusalem. And then James and John, of course, famous, they were going to take up for Jesus and said, well, hey, do you want us to bring down lightning and you want us to blow them up, basically? That was their response to the Samaritans rejecting Jesus. And I thought, man, that's not really what Jesus wanted at all. Jesus didn't want them to do that at all. And so they went on to another village. A little time goes by in the book of Luke, and then we find another example of Jesus and the Samaritans in Luke chapter 10. And this is the famous, parable, the famous story. And I think this is really interesting, that the parable is the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus has just been rejected by the Samaritans. And, we might have the tendency to hold grudges and keep grudges and talk bad maybe about somebody who treated us bad. But Jesus had that opportunity here, didn't he? And what he chose to do is he chose to glorify this Samaritan, the story of the parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke chapter 10. And it's interesting, the two people who ultimately, if you want to go read that, it's in Luke chapter 10, verse 25 through about verse 37, I guess. But anyway, Jesus told a story, and we're familiar with the story. And he told the story of three people who responded to a man who was beaten up and robbed. One was a priest, Jewish priest, we presume, and the second was a Levite, Jew again. So you've got two people that Jesus had the opportunity who were like himself to glorify, but instead he set them kind of in the bad light and pulled the Samaritan in a good light. And it was the Samaritan who, in verse 37 that Jesus said, is that he is the one who showed him mercy. So Jesus reached across racial barriers to make an example for everyone of someone who we might say was on the other side or on another side or not like themselves, who Jesus maybe had the opportunity to put in the bad light in this parable because of that he was rejected by the Samaritans just a short while earlier, when he was going through and going to Jerusalem. But he chose to think about them and to share them in a good light. And I don't know, there's a lot, I'm sure, a lot of thoughts that we could have in some of this, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there today, in some way for us to think about all that's going on in our culture and our world. And we can get on social media and make comments and read comments of people who maybe claim to be Christians, who have all kinds, it seems maybe, of knowledge or ideas, maybe would presume what Jesus would do in these times and these circumstances. And Jesus always surprises us, doesn't he? He always surprises us. And I think that, as a Christian, I can do a lot of things in being the hands and the feet of Jesus. But the one thing that the world needs, of all the things that we've got to give the world, the lost world, whether it's people who look like me or who look like somebody else, same color, same size, different color, different size, whoever, it doesn't matter. Same gender, different gender. His disciples at the woman at the well were surprised who's talking to a woman. So there are all kind of people, if you're a Christian, that need Jesus. And when it comes down to it, really all that we have to give people is Jesus. When we say it like that, it sounds like, well, maybe that's not enough. Maybe Jesus is not enough. all I have to give people is Jesus. That's the one thing they need. But isn't that the greatest thing that we have to give is Jesus? Anybody, anywhere, lost and hurting, showing mercy to them, be an example to those with bad attitudes and bad hearts, and reaching across aisles and tearing down barriers to give people the one thing, the only thing they need, that living water, like he says himself in John chapter 4, that if she would drink it, she would never thirst again. Jesus would say, I am the bread, later on in his ministry. Jesus fulfills. Jesus is enough. So I just want to encourage you this week to have a good week. And I hope this has brought some peace to your life. We're sitting out on the porch and thinking about what it is that we can do. Take Jesus to people. Have an awesome week.